All right. And welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody, our candidate series. We are here talking to candidates from all around the country, preparing for November 8th when all the nominations are announced and elections begin. And we go back into that whole vicious cycle of nonstop commercials, advertisements, flyers, campaign rallies, all that kind of stuff. But it's super important. We are at a very much an inflection point in this country, and changes need to be made, not just at the federal level, the state, the local, your city council, your school board. Everything right now has been tainted, and it's time for new candidates, period, point blank. And today we are joined by John Reid, who is running for lieutenant governor of the great state of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I won't say state, the Commonwealth. And John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
I am delighted to be with you. We are in the last lap of a very long year of campaigning for me. So we'll know who the new governor and lieutenant governor and attorney general are on hopefully the night of November 4th, but certainly by the morning of November 5th of this year. And that will probably set the tone for what we'll be discussing in the midterms next year. And I've told a bunch of the Republicans in Washington who've been very stingy with their money, while Democrats have been funneling money to their candidates, their anti-business candidates, by the way, that they need to decide which headline they want on November 5th. One that says that conservative thought and pro-business ideas are still alive in America, or one that says that the conservative mindset is on the ropes. And I'm certainly hoping I'll be victorious. I'm working really hard to make that happen.
Well, yeah, we should clarify that. It sounds like I got it wrong. So every state's different. I know Texas in November 8th is a big announcement. So November 4th, that's not for governor. That's for who is running for governor, right?
Nope. We have a weird thing in Virginia where we have off-year elections. So the year after the presidential election, after everybody's exhausted and all the money's been spent, and people are thinking, thank God that's finished, whether they won or lost, we start right back up with our statewide elections. And so I've already been through a pretty tumultuous period where there were people seeking the nomination. I wound up with the Republican nomination. Long story. But the last several months, I've been the guy, and I've been traveling all over the state. Winsome Sears, of course, the Republican candidate for governor, challenging the Democrat, the former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, and then the candidates for attorney general also.
Wow. So this is a final moment we're approaching here.
It's big. It's big.
So the constituencies in the Commonwealth of Virginia have a lot of problems, just like every other state in this country. Everyone blames it on the federal government. Everyone does that all the time because that's the hot topic, and that's what the news kind of pushes towards. What are the main things you intend to change as lieutenant governor of Virginia?
Well, I'll be candid with you. I'm trying to hold the line on some of the things that have made Virginia's economic ecosystem so successful. At the moment, we are in Virginia, the northernmost right to work state on the Atlantic seaboard. So if you go to Maryland, if you go to Pennsylvania, if you go to Delaware and, New Jersey, Connecticut, they are states that do not have the right to work. In other words, if your colleagues at a business decide that they want to vote to unionize, you're stuck, and you have to join the union too if you want to keep your job. You must submit to the union dues coming out of your paycheck. Virginia has been very successful for many decades because Republicans and Democrats alike finally agreed on something and said the secret to us recruiting business, expansion projects, recruiting entrepreneurs, and keeping different jobs is maintaining that right to work. And just in the last few years, there's been a dramatic shift within the Virginia Democrat Party where they have said we're going to abandon the right to work. In fact, all of the 6 people who were trying to run against me for lieutenant governor promised that that would be one of the first things they would do is work with the caucus, the Democrat caucus, to get rid of the right to work. Now, I was the communications director at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I can tell you, having talked to the big guys and the little guys, biggest business federation in the world, that right to work and the CEO not having to share a desk with a union boss from New Jersey, pretty important. So I'm trying to hold the line on that. That's probably the first business element that I think we're going to have as a contested issue in this legislature when we reconvene in January.
So let me see if I understand this from layman's terms. So 5 other conservative candidates, plus obviously all of the liberal candidates, want to remove the right to work.
No, all six of the Democrats, including the one who eventually got the nomination, want to get rid of the right to work. It's really a remarkable shift for the Democratic Party. The Republicans still hold on to this as an important element. And I think Virginians who really don't like being told what they must do, they may choose to join a union. I'm not really anti-union if you voluntarily join it. But Republicans are still trying to hold on to the right to work, but it's pretty precarious.
I mean, that is pure socialism. If you are forced to join a union, forced to pay dues, so that's an additional tax on your income.
Right.
For anyone who you go get a job, you have kids, you need to feed your kids, you get a job, you have to join a union. Now all of a sudden you're $250, $500 a month short. So some bureaucrat who's managing relations between the state and you are the ones who are actually in determine of your financial future. That's what that sounds like to me.
Well, that's exactly what happens. And, they do a good job of selling this to the workers saying, oh, we'll negotiate a better deal for you.
Of
Well,
course.
generally it doesn't work out that way. Even if you manage to keep your job, because inevitably the businesses do shed workers in order to pay the additional costs. Even if you manage to keep the job, generally people report that the extra income is exactly what goes to the union. So it's a net loss for you. You're not, and you're no longer in control of your own future. If you do a really great job and the boss wants to give you extra money or promote you or give you a bonus, that's off the table because the union has taken it off the table. So I try to talk to workers. I'm one of these Republican candidates who isn't just talking to people who already agree with me. I go out and I tell them, hey, look, guys, I know they're going to tell you you're going to make more money, but the truth is, and think about it, you're probably going to wind up at a loss once the money comes out and goes to the unions. And then from a political standpoint, man, I'll tell you, that money generally goes to very left-wing causes and left-wing candidates. So it really is a nefarious plot here. And that's the reason I think that the Democrat Party is so on board with it, in that they're looking out for the workers. I want to
They don't care about that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they don't care about that. I grew up in union. I'm not from the Midwest, so I grew up in union world, right? So everything was union. Some guys loved it because they could take a nap in a truck and earn $48 an hour. Some people hated it because they had to pay union dues and weren't getting paid enough to get by. These things in their original construct were designed to protect the worker for safety. Right? It was designed to make sure you had a safe environment. Now they are massive, massive revenue generating sources that are promoting socialist ideas in a free nation. These things should not, and I'll go ahead and say it, you don't have to, you're a candidate. I don't believe in the union structure that we have today. I think it is completely communistic. And I think that it not only hurts the American worker, it also creates a bigger K-shaped economy. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This is not what America was designed to be. We are a middle-class nation, which is what made us great. And now we have people on one political party, 100% of them voting for you to not have the right to work without paying an overlord. This is chaos. And look at the results right now. You're in a mall. You're in a shopping mall. It is on the East Coast. It is noon. It is lunchtime. We have seen 5 people walk by in a place of commerce. I have conversations with economists all the time. Oh, look at the numbers from the government. The economy is doing great. Hey, you are an example. What you're at right now is an example of what happens when you have left-wing politics that are dominating economic decisions. Oh, now we're at 7. There were 2 young people that walked by that should be in school right now, by the way. John,
It's rough. And a lot of these stores, I mean, this is the most successful mall in Central Virginia. And a lot of these store fronts are empty and have been that way for a couple of years. I mean, there is certainly a different economic dynamic to the world of shopping these days.
True.
But you're right. Everyone who works in this population center used to come and have lunch and buy things at lunch. And we're creating a real crisis for ourselves with these policies that mandate business decisions that aren't healthy for the businesses and thus for the employees.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a bigger topic right now when it comes. There's only so much you can do in your time in office. It's just the way it is. You're going to have to fight left and right. You're going to have to try to go down the center with everything to make it all work. And when it comes down to commerce, America right now, this is where you are at is a perfect definition of where America is today. Period. Yes, you could say everyone shops in e-commerce, but those places where you're at right now, those were the number one job source for teenagers in that town to learn how to become part of the workforce. Those are eviscerated. Those do not exist. Now we have AI. No one's going to be going to a shopping mall with AI selecting things off of your retina scan and biometrics as to what you'd like based on the algorithm of your former choice. So how do you battle that, John? Like how big of a battle is this for conservative, which is in Virginia, not a very conservative state at all, right? Most people will talk about the boys and the girls bathrooms, all that. That stuff's obviously important. It's demonic, by the way. It's obviously important, but there's nothing more important than fixing the money and fixing the commerce in this space right now. How do you intend to do this tactically? It's a great campaign speech. I'm going to fight for this, but tactically, how do you make it work?
Well, there's some practical things that I think I need to do if I'm lucky enough to be lieutenant governor. You know, the position itself doesn't offer a great deal of authority. You don't get to
Sure.
introduce legislation. So I'll be working with the Republican caucus to craft a package of bills that should give some economic freedom to the businesses that are here, but also to the concept of entrepreneurs coming to Virginia. I think that's the key element going forward. Anybody who's planning on the economy of Virginia or the United States looking the same in another decade with the huge technological advancements that are happening is crazy. We're gonna have to invite people to Virginia and give them incentives and clear out the red tape so that we're one of the places that entrepreneurs want to be. We're in a great central location, so that helps. You're close to Washington, if that is a priority. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll pass, John.
I know a lot of people are very repulsed by that. I understand, but we're in a great location, and that's something that a lot of other states don't have. And I'm looking at the legislation that's been passed in the last 5, 6 years in our state legislature, and it's doing a lot of damage to that spirit of entrepreneurship. Some of the folks who would like to start, the most basic, I'll just say popsicle stand, when you calculate the regs and the legal hurdles and the expenses and costs to opening your popsicle stand, you could be $100,000, uh, spending that money before you even open the door.
That's right.
And that's an impediment. If you don't have access to capital markets, if you can't crowdsource your funding to get the doors open, if you're not personally wealthy enough to be able to do that, that's a huge impediment to anybody actually being able to come up with an idea. And the magic of America, I think if you look historically, the Democrats will tell you it's about slave labor. It's about abusing the workers and taking advantage of them. I don't think that's true.
No.
I think there are always people who are working, and in America, you actually get paid to do that, at least in modern America. The magic of America is that people have an idea and they can access capital markets and create their idea, even if it's in their basement or their garage, and build from there. And when Democrat leaders get in office and they riddle the public codes, the municipal codes, with lots of regulations, it really makes it tough for anyone to take it from idea to fruition. And I'd like to be one of the people who beats that back and highlights those things to try to prevent them from taking further root in Virginia.
Well, you're a successful businessman. You have a good life. You're a director at the Chamber of Commerce. What made you decide to run to be a pauper in public office?
Yeah, well, I'm becoming a pauper in public office. I kind of underestimated the costs and the financial burden that it would put on me. My mortgage is due in a couple of days, just like everybody else. I was sick and tired of what I was seeing, and I had a very successful radio program for 8 years. I was the morning drive commentator on the
You
news
can tell you got a great
program.
voice.
Thank you. You too. But I really felt like I'm a critic from the sidelines. And why am I, with the very unique personal, political, and business background that I have, why am I accepting other people making these decisions when day after day after day I look and say, these are stupid decisions. They're bad decisions. I could make better decisions. There's no magic in this. In fact, the collection of people who are at our state capitol, and quite frankly, I would argue at the U.S. Capitol, are probably the least impressive bunch in the history of the United States. You have people who are social justice warriors. No disrespect intended. If you're passionate about an issue, okay. But that doesn't mean that you should sit in a chair, one of 100 in the House of Delegates here in Virginia, one of 40 in the state Senate, and you should be casting votes on the entire spectrum of issues that are coming before the legislature. Many of these people are not prepared to balance their own checkbooks, much less make decisions that are good for the general population and for the Virginia economy. And I think, again, not to insult the people who are at the Capitol, I think I could probably bring some leadership that would help us ferret out the bad ideas and promote some of the good ideas.
Well, I think it's great that you had a radio show, especially a drive time show, because you have your ear to the street. You're listening to people. You've dealt with the common person. I don't think most people realize this. I saw an article the other day. The average credit score in Washington, D.C. is 586. 586.
It's me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. So this is great. I mean, John, this is what America is supposed to be about. It's not electing the next central casting, bow tie, white
That's
glove
right.
event person who knows the hoi pollois and can make themselves wealthier. It's about bringing normal people into the fold, bringing common man's ideas, needs, and desires for a better future into the fold of politics. And I think you're going to have a great run. I hope you win. I hope this video gets out there and people see the realness of you. But at the same time, make no mistake, you're going to have an uphill battle. Virginia is so close to Washington, D.C. that the politics are almost identical, as you well know. How big of an uphill battle is this to go from pure liberalism over the past 2 decades into some form of conservatism?
Well, it's pretty tough. And, in the phase that I'm in right now, which is the election phase, we are being outspent. It's just a colossal problem here. Democrats are funneling in money to my opponent from New York, from DC. Just to let you know with real numbers how bad it is, my opponent, the Democrat Senator Ghazala Hashmi, has raised almost $3 million for her statewide campaign. Candidly, that's not a lot compared to the governor's race,
Sure.
where we're talking $30 million versus $20 million, big money. I've got 300 grand left, seriously, to run a statewide campaign. And the good thing is I've done this before with my other endeavors where I have been out fundraised and outspent, and I know how to stretch a dollar and make it work. And no one will ever work harder than I will. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. I haven't taken a day off since January 27th when I announced this campaign. That was not my original plan, but I suddenly realized, oh my God, I'm out here now. If I'm going to make this work, there's only one person who can truly pull it off, and that's me going out and meeting with voters, not just people who like me, but people who are skeptical of me and engaging with them and dealing with businesses who are, business owners who are so focused on their business that they may be losing track of the politics that's about to hit them like a tidal wave. And I think that is the reason that most of the polls show me either tied or slightly ahead of my opponent, even with the massive amounts of money that she has. Also helps to be right on the issues. I think most Virginians are still grounded in an appreciation for money and good public policy. But it is it's a pretty daunting situation to be in. If I'm being honest with you, it's been unpleasant and a real difficulty, but I'm still fighting.
Yeah, the one thing I can tell you with my experience of people from Virginia and being in Virginia, once you get outside of that 20-mile radius of Washington, D.C., it's just like California, right? California has Sacramento, San Francisco, L.A., kind of San Diego. Outside of those highly liberal areas, it's a very conservative state. It is filled with very normal people like you and I who just want to get along with our life, make some money, take care of our kids, retire on time, praise our God, and live a good life. So, John, you have an uphill battle. How can a lieutenant governor make a difference in a state? I think that's a question. A lot of people, not every state has a lieutenant governor. So how do you assist the governor? Where do you come into play? How does this role work?
Well, one thing that's interesting about Virginia is we have three different races. We have the governor's race, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. We do not run as a ticket in a formal sense. So people have been known in Virginia to split their ticket, elect one person from a different party as governor. Of course, I'm supporting the Republican ticket. I do think we're all grounded and really positive and will work hard. So I'm hoping that people will put their faith in us. But I called a lot of the people who had been lieutenant governor, including a few Democrats who were willing to take my call. And I said, hey, is this job worth a damn? And I got different reactions. The consensus that I seem to discern from those conversations was it's what you make of it. If you are a proactive assertive person who has a point of view that you want to share, this is a platform that matters both during the 2 months that the legislature is in session in Virginia. Thank God we don't have a year-long legislature. I mean, I'm really going to fight to make sure that they don't pull a fast one and turn this into a 12-month-a-year legislature. That would be a disaster. But not just when the legislature's in session, but throughout the year, traveling around the state and traveling around the United States. And I have a lot of experience as an international businessman. I've been to 113 countries and done a lot of deals in the Middle East for my old company. I'm going to be the person who tries to bring business to Virginia, but they can't mess it up with these outrageous minimum wage proposals. I mean, one of the Democrats who I'm working uh, with or competing against is really proposing a $20 an hour minimum wage effective immediately. And it's not even graded from the wealth and the population of Northern Virginia to the different situation that you find in Southwest Virginia, where they have been decimated for decades because the coal mining collapse into that industry going away. They, if I would never support it, but at least you would think these are people who are economically minded if they had graded it based on the economic realities of the region, but they haven't. They just want to force this $20 an hour minimum wage. So that's why I get in the car and I go to these places and say, that sounds good to you, I'm sure, but you will lose your job. These businesses will close and it will be
100%.
even more decimated than it was when the coal companies left.
Yeah, it's miraculous to hear, especially progressive liberals, just throw out monetary numbers like, "Oh, let's pay everyone." Where does the money come from? Where do these employers get the money to give these raises? I'm an employer. I've been an entrepreneur for many years. I've owned many companies. There's nothing more prideful than paying your employees a good wage. Like it's every employer wants, well, not every. There are certainly slumlords in the world, John. But most employers, most good business owners want to pay their employees more the harder they work. They want to reward them for helping them grow a business. But you can't simply slap a law onto economics and say all of a sudden everyone gets this magical amount of money. Where does it come from? So we have this minimum wage. What are the attributes of the campaigns for those pro on this side, the Democrats? How are they going to amplify business so that businesses can make more money to pay $20 an hour?
They're not. They're just fooling people into thinking that they can mandate a fair or living wage. And when I point out to them that their main issue during this election cycle, in theory at least, is the cost of living and the inflation, which I try not to be hyper partisan, but I will. We saw that explode under President Joe Biden, and we're trying to bring it under control under President Trump. Um, they don't seem to connect the two. And some of these people aren't stupid. I think they are very emotionally manipulative to people who have suffered in the last few years and have seen these prices go up, and they're trying to throw some sort of life preserver to people, but the life preserver is actually an anvil that's going to take them down. And it's incumbent upon those of us who are in public life, both as broadcasters and commentators and writers, and as political candidates, to explain the really horrible reality which is on the verge of happening if the bad things happen in this upcoming election. We'll see it here in Virginia this fall. I'm going to do everything I can to be pro business, pro worker also, because I think there's dignity in work. That's the only way we have a prosperous society that's successful and peaceful. But the Democrats are, they're putting up a fight.
It's amazing that they're putting up a fight for things that are mathematically horrible for society. And that's where the dialectic comes, right? Their ideas are so bad, we push them into the other side of things. What's the pressure like from the Republican Party? Are they supportive of this? Is this something that they want to do? Are they supporting you in your candidacy? Where is the party line coming in there?
Well, the Republicans want to win. There used to be something called the Virginia curse, which I have had to reject, where if the Republicans win the White House, you're guaranteed that a Democrat will win the governor's mansion the next year, and vice versa. Well, I wouldn't have gotten into this race if I felt like that was a guaranteed situation. I think there are enough people who are very disturbed, both with the economic proposals that the Democrats have been issuing, and quite frankly, with the cultural chaos that we're all suffering from. Here at the mall, In 2020, all of these stores had to close. They had to put wooden barriers up to keep the mob in the suburbs from showing up in the parking lot and smashing all the windows, causing millions of dollars in damage. And while we're not seeing the same level of violence that we saw in 2020, I got to tell you, we're still seeing violence. We're seeing political violence. We're seeing economic violence. We are seeing a lot of prosecutors, especially in our urban areas and our cities, who are Democrat prosecutors who refuse to put people in jail when they do something that will harm an innocent person. And I don't demand, and I make sure I speak this in all of my speeches. You do not have to agree with me. I was a talk show host. I'm happy to spend hours debating and discussing and even listening to people that don't agree with me. It's totally fine. But what
Absolutely.
I will not debate is whether or not you and I both are going to obey the law equally. We are going to have a society where it's debate, not violent protest. And don't let that get confused. Most people don't have the guts to say it. I will say it. And if I'm lieutenant governor, I'm going to turn up the heat on these people to make sure that this society is one where everyone, regardless of their opinion, can express it and not be immediately attacked and destroyed economically and personally. It's time for that to stop.
Yeah, and it's almost like that came out of nowhere. This was not an American thing 10 years ago, and now
Right.
it's become common culture. You talk to people overseas, and this is what they think America is. It's just a bunch of babies that break things when they don't get their way. That is not the American way. That is
Well,
not the
remember,
Christian way. That is not any way. That is not a good way of life, period.
when we were growing up, I remember watching, TV shows, Oprah, Donahue, where they would bring these lawyers on who would be defending someone that they didn't agree with. They probably despised and found
Yep.
that individual to be repulsive. Like one lawyer from the ACLU defending the KKK Grand Wizard, right? But the lawyer would say, "I'm here to defend your right to say what I find repulsive." The shorthand, of course, I may not like what you have to say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. Say it, not go out and act violently.
That's right.
And so there's this bizarre situation we find ourselves in where there is violence being used to try to silence the vast majority of the population who just want to live a happy life, while also suppressing the ability of individuals to say what they want to say, especially if it's conservative. And you asked me earlier why I jumped in this race. It was because of the cowardice of a lot of people in my own party who were too scared of being called racist. So they wouldn't speak up in 2020 and 21. And I was on the radio every day saying, this is wrong. And it's not about black and white. It's about freedom in America and decency in America. And, the last several weeks, I've been wearing a bulletproof vest because everyone's so worried about this political violence. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And I'm going to do everything I can to restore us to a place of normalcy where we don't all agree, but we can reasonably express ourselves.
Yeah, America is not a place where political candidates need to be wearing bulletproof vests. That is just,
Outrageous.
and they're hot. They're uncomfortable.
Well, that's true.
No, this is such a breath of fresh air because at least you're calling out your own. And you're right. People are afraid of being called racist for saying what the truth is, or anti-Semitic or whatever it is. Like, remember that old saying you and I were taught when we were kids? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Right.
Now names and words are violence. And that is the trend societally that we need to get away from. You do have the right to say whatever you want. You can say horrible things in this country. You have the right to do it. You do not have the right to do horrible things ever.
Isn't it odd that there is some confusion about that? If I were to go into one of these stores and insult one of the employees with a racial slur, I don't think it would be long before that was on the evening news and I would be roundly condemned. I certainly think that it's appropriate to condemn people who are racially divisive and insulting to people. But then if I were to take a brick and smash it through one of these glass windows, I think there would be some sort of moral debate that would take place in public. Is it justified? Is it not? No, it's not justified. That is violence. That is unacceptable behavior. That is illegal. And someone needs to stand up to say that that's wrong. And there are just not enough leaders who are tough enough to do that. And I don't lead with this issue, but I think people should know it. I am a very unique Republican candidate. We've never had an openly gay statewide candidate in the history of Virginia. And so, everybody else is talking about it behind my back. So I feel like I've got to bring it up. I share with people in minority communities that I understand what it's like to be mistreated, to be dismissed. But that does not entitle you or me to go out and harm other innocent people or people we don't like. And it is a remarkable thing to sit in front of a group that's never been told that before and watch them come along with this idea that someone's going to stand up for them in the appropriate way at the Capitol instead of just beating pots and pans like uneducated fools in the middle of the streets. It's about intellect. It's about the law. It's about using the system to make sure that everybody is treated fairly, not abusing the system to intimidate other people, to force them into giving you what you want.
The most shocking thing about that statement is they've never been told that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, no human being has additional rights to any other human being because of the choices they make. That's America by itself. And the further we get away from what is right and what is wrong, and the more we get into what is left and what is right, the further we have descended away from moral values of all types.
Yeah.
We were taught to love our neighbor 2,000 years ago, and we have completely forgotten that. We have forgotten that free speech is the ability to say whatever you want and to ignore whatever you want. We've really forgotten these two things from an American perspective. So, John, I wish you all the best in this campaign. I think you have such a huge, daunting task, as does every governor in every state and every lieutenant governor and every attorney general. I don't think people realize how deep and how wide the dark bureaucracy of America has gotten. So I just hope and pray that people left and right see through the nonsense of the campaign, that they find the candidate that makes the most sense. I just met you today. I can't endorse you, but you seem like a great guy. Not that my endorsement would mean anything to you from Texas. I'm a nobody on the internet. But you seem like a great guy with your head on your shoulders who understands business, and Virginia is struggling economically badly, and you guys need a change. And right now, I think the 2025 elections in that state need to revolve around economics first. If you can fix that, you can create a prosperous state once again. It's a beautiful state. It's a gorgeous state filled with amazing people that I've met throughout the course of my life. And John, I wish you all the best. How can people keep up with you?
Tell everybody at Baylor High. I graduated from Baylor University in Waco and have spent a lot of time in Texas. Had a great time there. And I hope you'll go to johnreid4virginia.com, REID. And, I've been the one candidate who's actually enunciated a bunch of new public policy positions, not just rhetoric and slogans, but I hope you'll find them to be very thought out economic plans and some of the plans to deal with the issues that so many people claim they care about. It's the Reid Revolution on Substack, and you can find links to each individual plan at johnreid4virginia.com. And I really appreciate the chance to talk to your audience and share this today.
Absolutely. I apologize for my ignorance of Virginia politics. About 2 years ago, I just stopped paying attention like a lot of people did. So
I hope I'll be able to invite you to an inauguration in January, God willing.
That would be amazing. I'd be more than happy to be there. I'd be more than happy. Well, John, thank you so much. God bless you. God bless your campaign. God bless the state of the Commonwealth of Virginia. God bless this country. And we'll see you all next time here on the Rice Report. Have a good one, everybody.